Let me share with you what has been bothering me about mirrorless cameras. And in the beginning I thought it related only to crop sensor mirrorless, like the M50 Mark II I'm recording with. But then after looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of flicker shots taken with much more capable mirrorless cameras, I noticed the exact same thing happening, and let's show it. What am I talking about? Because this was why I started doing this channel. This is why I started looking deeper into the measurements, camera measurements, and trying to figure out what is happening in the world of cameras and why on earth has the progress reversed in the image quality as we get newer and newer mirrorless cameras. And for those of you who don't know me yet, I am János, and I am not a pro photographer. I am just a regular person. I love to take pictures. I have several affordable cameras that I have presented already in this channel and that I'm talking about mostly, and that's because I want to share something that I know about and that I can relate to, and I compare it to other cameras. And unfortunately, in this case of the previous video, I'm looking at my screen, that was a comparison between the 10D and the A7RV, and I got questions and comments that saying that I want to see photos, János, show me photos. And this now is the time when I'm going to show the photos in response to that kind of comment. And as I cannot show the A7R5 photos of my own because I do not have the camera, what I did is I went on Flickr and I created a Flickr gallery with photos that people took with their A7R5. And then you would say, János, what on earth are you doing? Because as Martin Kasten has said, Flickr is full of bad photos. But yes, I agree with that. Actually, now we are seeing, I think, 2 good photos and even more good photos here. But I think this is why I like Flickr, because Flickr is, if you don't know what it is like, maybe it's not my place to introduce it, and maybe there should be a proper video introducing Flickr. Basically, it's a big website of people posting their pictures, the photos that they take with their cameras, and there are professional photographers posting there, and there's people like me who are not professional, just taking pictures for fun, and who do not have that experience of handling a camera that a pro photographer has, and they do not have that experience with composition, editing, etc., etc. And however, why I like to recommend Flickr to all of us is because it is going to show you exactly what you and I are going to produce when we get a camera like that. And one of my favorite features of Flickr is that on Flickr there are groups. You can search for camera brands or lenses, and there are groups where people post pictures taken by that camera. Of course, you have to double check, because sometimes people post something different there, like a cell phone picture in the Hasselblad group or something like that, and that happens. So you have to really double check it. Just because it's in a group, it doesn't mean it was taken with that camera. Please double check. And sometimes I'm really annoyed by those who submit their pictures without naming their cameras, or naming, putting there what settings, what camera settings they used, what lens they used to take the picture, because I think it's a really valuable tool that when you look at like one 1,000 shots taken by a camera with different lenses, then you will get a feel of what is the commonality between those different lenses. Or maybe you just take like what a specific lens, how that image is, and then you will realize that the lens will make a bigger impact on the quality and the texture of the image than the camera body itself. So I think for that, to get to know that, Flickr is a wonderful tool, and it will be a very excellent reference for all of us, me and you, to see that when you get your hands on a specific camera, what is the type of photograph that you will take. And often what you find is not, for example in this case, is not the best capability of the A7R5 that the camera is capable of, but give that camera to the hand of an average person, what is it that the average person turns out from the camera? What is the range you are going to find? Of course, if you want to look at what is the best, then look at pro photographers and what they produce. But that's not what you are going to do when you have a A7R5 in your hands. What you will produce will be much more like these diverse shots. There will be maybe some which will be like this, but there will be a lot that will be like that. And so let me just show you and go back to where I started in the beginning of this video. And let's look at my screen. And this is my beef. Not this picture exactly, but what you see in this picture. Bird shots. So bird shots and made me be very aware that there is something fundamentally wrong, broken, or misdirected happening in the world of mirrorless development, is that when I look at these shots, bird shots, I notice that it doesn't look like a photograph of a bird. It looks like an oil painting of a bird. And that is really bothering me. Because when you look back at photos that were taken by a DSLR, something like the 6D Mark I or a Nikon D700, those photos look like birds. And yes, when I dug deeper into this mystery, I really found out that when you look at the A7R5 or any other modern mirrorless, like the Canon R6, R3, RP, whatnot, all of them look like oil paintings. And however, this is what you are going to get when you are not using the camera to its full extent. Because let's have a look at it. Why does it look like an oil painting? It looks like an oil painting because it's not at base ISO, it's taken at ISO 800. And the strength of modern mirrorless cameras, the strength of the sensors is really there at ISO 100. And when we are going at higher and higher ISOs, what is happening is that the modern image processing uses much heavier processing than the older chips did, the older sensors did. So when you look at an image from a Canon 6D Mark I, an image of a bird, it will be not as sharp and not as crisp. There will be some noise in it, there will be some haze, but it will look much more like a bird. You will see that the animal has feathers. The feathers are not super defined, but they do look like feathers, and it looks like it was a three-dimensional bird. And now, and actually, that is pretty closely happening when we take a bird shot with these modern mirrorless cameras at ISO 100. because at ISO 100 these cameras have excellent signal to noise ratio, excellent dynamic range, and they do not need signal processing to artificially boost the signal to noise levels. And when we go at higher ISOs, and we need to go at higher ISO with bird, and that's why I said bird, because for birds you need very, very fast speeds, like 1/1600 and f8 to make sure that the whole bird is in focus, right? So we need focal depth combined with extreme speed, and it means that and we also need that because we have like a really telephoto lens that doesn't even work anything less than f8. I suspect so. Maybe like f6.3, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, there it is, f6.3, that's the minimum. So it just barely stopped down for a little extra sharpness, and to get that we need to bump the ISO up to 800 even in a full daylight. And bumping the ISO up to 800 already plummets the signal to noise capability, the color capability, the tonal range, the texture, to such a degree that the camera needs to employ extreme amounts of signal processing. And that's why, and that signal processing, what it effectively does is that it removes noise. And that's why the photos nowadays look so clean and crisp, because the signal processing removes the noise from the camera that is produced by the high ISO. And the result is not just removal of noise, but removal of signal content as well, because the camera cannot tell the difference between noise and signal. It is not happening. Or it's happening to a level where the signal is going to get eroded a lot. So the picture will look like an oil painting. And the higher we go with the ISO, and the more sharpening we apply to the picture, the more it will be not just as an oil painting, but we can get to a more extreme. I will show you, if you apply more sharpening, we can get to where we have this locust here. You see, now this looks definitively like a paint shop, I would almost at Paint Shop Pro, like a PowerPoint generated locust. Doesn't even look like it was taken by a camera. It looks like totally AI generated, but no, this is what's going to happen when you add too much sharpening. It's just going to destroy the color by creating these artificial contrasts, like you see here, that white line and all of those lines. Everything is the color information is destroyed to create those artificial contrasts and highlights. And it can get even worse than this. Where was this taken? It was still taken at ISO 800. But probably the person here applied higher error correction, higher smoothing than the previous picture. And what happens when you apply even more? Let's see, was it down here or was it up there? I will do a little bit of scrolling here. It was up. Let's have a look here. Let's have a look at this bird. And now you see here, this bird looks totally like a Photoshop faked bird. And like it doesn't even look like feathers anymore, and it's just angular features. It doesn't even follow the smooth contours of the bird. It just looks like a very strange, bizarre AI generated picture. And there's a lot of AI built into these most modern cameras, and these are the tricks that they are playing, that you are not seeing the bird anymore, but you're seeing the re-edited image of the camera. And now I think I will receive a bunch of comments saying that, János, it's very easy You just turn on off the smoothing of the camera, the error correction. You just take the sharpening down to 0. But you can't do that anymore. And that's what more and more photographers are realizing when they get cameras like the Canon R6 or the R6 Mark II, or these newest Sonys, that even with the sharpening turned off, it already has a lot of baked in image processing at higher ISOs, and you cannot turn it off because the raw file is already pre-cooked for you. And that is because there is a need, or I would say the fashion or the trend of our age is to have as much perceived sharpness as possible and a chronic aversion to noise. And the manufacturers are just going really out of town just to make sure that there is absolutely no noise in the pictures as much as they can get away with. And as the years progress, what I've sadly seen is that with the more and more modern mirrorless cameras, this sharpening is more and more extreme, and we are getting this bird you see at ISO 3200, and even though, so you see that's what's happening when you push the ISO of the camera. It's going to give you a more and more of a caricature of the action that you are seeing, and or an oil painting or drawing. So, and what I've noticed, to my not consternation, but it was a big consternation, is that when I looked at Canons, because I have Canon cameras, and when I think about upgrading or thinking about or dreaming about upgrading my cameras, I'm thinking about Canon, and to my great consternation, I noticed by flicking through the Canon Flickr galleries and groups is that the Canon RP, the most limited full frame Canon mirrorless, has by far the most natural looking images, and even the R has more processing, and the newer ones like the R6 Mark II have a lot of processing applied to higher and higher ISO images. And if you want to look at the ISO 3200 image, the RP has adds the least amount of processing. Of course, it will have the most perceivable film grain or graininess or ISO noise compared to all of them, but it retains, I think, the most of the low-level information, even compared to the newer cameras, which boast much better dynamic range, much better color, etc., as measured by DxO Mark. And I would really welcome your experiences if you have hands-on experience with RP versus R6 or other cameras, what you have experienced in the fine texture of the image. And I would really welcome that, because I do not own those cameras, so I am at your mercy. and I really want to hear your feedback. What is happening? Is there hope for cameras other than the RP to look at as potential cameras for capturing a natural looking bird action, natural looking texture for images of higher ISO? Because speaking to photographers, professional photographers, you know very well that the most that counts is not the camera but the light. You need excellent light to capture excellent images, and no technology can help you there. Even the A7RV won't work if you don't have proper light. And sometimes proper light like for really fast action, like birds flying, means like extremely fast shutter speeds, extremely high ISOs, and then you don't have enough available light for this camera. Of course, with something like a 12 megapixel size modern Sony, you would have a much better chance to take this action, but then you won't have enough megapixels to have a big enough size bird to produce. But again, if you are into bird photography, please share details about it, because we all want to learn about it. I am just talking about assumptions that I have, which are based on me tinkering around with my cameras and watching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos and hundreds of thousands of Flickr photos. So going back, let's go now back. What I'm going to show you is the Canon 10D, because my previous video was about contrasting the Sony A7R V to Canon 10D. And before I show more about that, I would like to have a look at the questions I got. And I got a lot of awesome, fantastic questions on my last two videos about the 5D classic 10D sensor versus my M50 mirrorless, and the 5D, I mean the 10D against the A7R5. And let's see, this last comment that I received, I would like to reflect on this one first. And thank you for sharing, thank you for the comment, but I would like to translate it for you again, because there was a problem in your translation, because what you wrote here is what you have assumed that I'm going to talk about in the video, and your assumption won over reality, and you missed the part that this is not true. So yeah, that's what I was looking at, that comparing basically a 6 megapixel crop which would be the equivalent of a 10D to a 61 megapixel of the Sony. So it's like 10% of the pixels. But what I found, and I expected what you are sharing with us, this was my expectation, that the color rendition will be worse, still worse for those megapixels than what the Sony's rendering is. My assumption is that every single pixel on a modern sensor is better in color, noise, dynamic range, tonal range than every single pixel on a sensor that was in a camera 20 years ago. And when I did look at this comparison, that's why I was flabbergasted that it's not true. As you can see, the line that's on top means it is higher. It is not the Sony, but it is the Canon. And yeah, of course, at base ISO, the Sony wins. It has higher, oh sorry, I'm looking at the signal to noise. You mentioned color. Let's have a look at the color. So this is the color comparison between the 6D down here, it's like next to nowhere, and the Sony, which is massively better. But now this is comparing the 61 megapixels against the 6 megapixels. However, now let's choose the tab which compares pixel per pixel. And when we compare each pixel in the sensor to each other, then to my consternation, the 10D wins in the entire working range of the 10D camera. Of course, when we look at the base ISO, Sony takes the lead. By how much? 21.7 bits versus 21.6 bits. 0.1 bits. That's almost nothing. But yeah, let's give it. Yeah, Sony definitively wins, even if by the hair of a chinny chin chin. However, what does this mean to all of us? Does it mean that the Sony is the better camera? It means that the Sony is a better camera, even pixel per pixel, in the hands of a photographer who knows how to handle it. And that's why all the professional photographers will go for the base ISO of the camera and take all the shots there, because it is there where the camera, the sensor, produces the best image. And of course, when it is not possible for every kind of photo, and that's why the cameras have a range of higher ISOs, because we are forced to use it in a real life situation when you don't have a studio, when you don't have the expensive lighting equipment for making portraits. By the way, the lighting equipment will probably cost you a lot more than your camera. And every pro photographer will tell you that the gear to make the lighting, it counts more than the camera itself, and they would probably take a worse camera with an excellent lighting gear compared to an excellent camera with an improper lighting. The excellent lighting with the worst camera will always win out in the quality of the image. And here what we have is that this camera 20 years ago is comparable to the Sony, and it just totally blew my mind. Like, what on earth is going on? And I would say, okay, if it's only in the color sensitivity, and it's not by much, look at that, like 0.1, like 0.2 bits, 1.2, like 0.3, 0.4, about almost like 1 bit at the lower ranges. It's just as the ISO is dropping, the 10D starts to take the lead in colors compared to the A7RV. And what's going on? Because when we look at the ISO of the camera, everyone knows that the A7RV is much better at low light compared to the 10D. But so this doesn't compute. And this is how it computes, and this is how it all makes sense, that when we look at the low ISO, I mean the high ISO pictures of the Sony, then we have a crisp, clear image, but the image does not have that range of color. It has an artificially colored image that has resemblance to the bird that it captured, but it has less of the actual information content compared to a similar image taken with the Canon 10D. And the Canon 10D, even though it has better color information if it were a similar image, but most people would not prefer that today because it is much noisier. You will see a lot of noise popping up. And when you look at it with a critical eye, that you see not just the noise but the subject itself, then you will notice that yes, there is a lot of noise, but the subject is richer as well, and there are no artificial artifacts. And of course, when you are not a good photographer, you will have or you don't, I mean, I'm not even saying you're not a good photographer, but I'm saying when you don't have an experience, you don't have control of the camera, you don't have control of the situation, then you are going to run into these situations when the camera is going to make the decisions for you, or you are going to choose the wrong camera. Like for example here, if it was me, I would choose like another mirrorless camera that is better in low light, that creates less of these artifacts, like the Canon R3. I think the Canon R3 would produce a bird that looks more like a bird and less like a painting at ISO 3200. And this is part of our world today, that even at this extremely expensive, like a $4,000, $4,000+ camera range, they are still so specialized that just the fact that you plop down $4,000 for a camera doesn't mean that you are going to get a camera that can do everything. You still have to specialize and just learn about what is it that you are going to get, and how to get it from your camera, and what I wanted to share more, and I think I will not have time for it. I am checking my time there, 31 minutes into the video, probably maybe there's like three of you left watching this video. Everyone checked out already. So what I've done here is I created two Flickr galleries. One of them I called A7RV Show and Tell, and the other 10D Magic. And I call it 10D Magic because even though I think there's plenty of magical photos in the A7R5, like this photo that I chose as the opening photo for this gallery, I think it's entirely magical, it's fabulous, and I just want to click on it and show it, and I like to showcase it's Albanese Manuela's photo, and you see it had 81 views, so very few people saw it by Flickr standards, and one fave, and that's me. I'm the only one who liked this photograph. And I think it's a fabulous photo. Let's just zoom into it and just go from left to right. And you see this is this was taken on Iceland, and there you see that there's like a strong sunlight there, and there are the mountains here, and they are going towards the ocean. So it has a very unusual composition, and it takes a little while for your eyes to adapt, but there's like a road coming here that separates this inland bit, and then there's some, what is that, a river there? Or a little lake? Or more ocean over there? But like the colors are just so different from the ocean here and the ocean here on the right side. And when you look at that, at the beginning it looks like there's something wrong, because the A7R5 supposed to have excellent dynamic range. Why is it looking so grainy over there in the mountains? But I think that was something that the creator of the photograph wanted to illustrate, that the image, that the mountain is not the focus, but you see the focal plane is on the water here. So that's the crystal clear part. Maybe if I go here, now you can see it better. So this part of the picture is in focus, and everything else, like if we go behind or in the front, these are out of focus. I think this is absolutely fabulous. And even though you would say, like, technically it could be so much better, and you would say that the dynamic range of this shot is very poor, because here the highlights are totally blown, and there you see it's black. So we don't see any information there. So where and what ISO was this picture taken at? No, it doesn't show. Anyway, so if you wanted to nitpick, you could nitpick that this is like a bad camera or something like that. But I think the person who took this image really did a smashing job with it, and excuse me, and then it illustrates so well just because you have a camera that can capture like 14 stops of dynamic range, it doesn't mean that you have to cram everything into the picture. I think that that illustrating that here it is just white, it's pure white, it's be clipping the dynamic range. It just illustrates, it gives a much more authentic feel of a bright sun that comes from here. It gives contrast to the image. If we just try to shrink down like the entire dynamic range into a JPEG file, it's just going to eat up the textural, the tonal information, and leave us without contrast, without character of the image, and I think this is absolutely wonderful, and that's why I had a comment on my videos, and that said that the pro photographer doesn't look at the statistics, doesn't look at measurements. He just goes and takes pictures, takes photos, and uses the camera as a tool to do whatever he envisions and what he wants. And I think this is a wonderful example for that. That even though, so that tells partly that extreme dynamic range is not like a requirement from a camera, because even if you have that, you can just intentionally shrink the dynamic range to create a stunning visual representation, or tell about your story that you see, that you want to share with the world. And going back to the 10D magic, I think I listed for both of the Sony and the Canon photos that cover a wide range of shots that are either like technically creative or technically lacking, or use the capability of the camera or don't use the capability of the camera, but it gives you an idea what's going on. And I put this shot here to illustrate that when this camera came out, it was used for wedding photography. So it used to be a serious camera at the time. It's just that since then so much has changed. But even though if you look at it, it's still only, well, I cannot zoom in it. I haven't provided in any bigger magnification, just these few megapixels. But even by today's standards, it's not. Oh wait, it's okay. We are back here. And here, that's another picture I wanted to share. Look at this. And this is what I'm saying. This is what reflects that statistic that I was sharing, that the Canon sensor was ranked by DxOMark, measured, actually not ranked, because it ranked the 10D as bottom barrel scum, and it ranked the A7R5 as 100, just maxed out the DxO scoring. But when it traced the color information per pixel, then the 10D was winning in all the range that the 10D can cover. Of course, the A7R5 was better at the base ISO, but it was at a range that the 10D was never made to work with. And when you look through those flicker shots, I would say less than 20% of them are made at base ISO. So it's a good chance that you are going to make most of your pictures not at base ISO, at that range between ISO 100 and 3200, where the 10D is leading on top of the A7R5. Does it mean that you should go run and grab a 10D right now and take better pictures than the A7R5? Not by a long shot. No, because you can do that only if you intimately know the camera, and if you are a pro photographer and you know what you are doing, and you have a whole lot of time on your hands. Because there's one thing that mirrorless absolutely crushes these old cameras, is the efficiency at which you can turn out photographs. Even for a pro photographer, the time it takes to take one excellent shot with this camera, during that time you can take 100 shots with the A7R5. So I think that's it for now, and please browse through these pictures and you will see, just look at this picture, how good the tonality is, how good the 3D pop. You can feel that this is a 3D object. You can smell, you can, it's tactile, you can touch that this is a glass. You can even tell the type of glass based on the photo. And when you look at the A7R5 images, the tone, the color, the texture, you cannot even tell that it's a 3D object. It looks flattened, and yes, you can zoom into it like 10 times bigger than you could zoom in here, but you cannot tell what the type of the bottle was, or just you can tell if you read the label, but not, you don't get this tactile sensation that you get from the 10D images. And this is what I've been noticing, that when I'm using the 10D and the photos that I'm taking with it, this is not my photo, this is Flickr's, but Flickr did not let me to put my own photos into a gallery. So what's going on? So that's why I'm using the feathers of different birds, because I cannot use my pictures. So I'm going to show, don't worry, I'm going to show my 10D photos, my 5D photos, my M50 photos in next videos. Just right now, this is what I could quickly come up, and for your convenience, do these two contrasts, build this little photo gallery quickly for you to accompany this video. And I really hope it is really instrumental. I haven't even gotten around to show most of the shots, but look at this. This was taken by the 10D, this cat image. And here it kind of reminds me as if it was taken by a modern mirrorless camera, right? It is super sharp, it's super detailed, and check this out. Let's zoom in it. Oh, and when you zoom in it, I'm not sure how good it will turn out when you look at it on the video, on the codec. But you can see in the pupil of the cat that there's like a cabinet there. There's the person taking a photograph with the flash. You can see the flash going on there. There's the door behind the person taking the photo. And all of this you can see in the eye of a cat in a 6 megapixel photograph. Talking about sharpness, talking about image detail, and look at the detail of the face where the focal plane is. Look at how awesome the whiskers are. Look at the pose. Look at the fluffiness of the fur. You can see that this is a fluffy cat. Look at the phenomenal bokeh around here. Isn't that amazing? If I want a modern mirrorless camera, latest and greatest, this is the picture I want to take with it. And surprise, surprise, if you know how to take that photo, you can take it with a 10D as well. And it will still have astonishing level of detail as shown in the eye of the cat. Not eye of the beholder, but eye of the cat. And there's so much more, and I was planning to analyze a lot more of the photos, because there was a purpose behind my madness, behind the wanton randomness that is seeming on these galleries. But I'm going to talk about those later. So what's happening? Oh, this photo here, I took it because this looks just like as if it was taken by a Nikon D300. The color and everything is just like, when I saw it, it's like, this is a Nikon shot. I almost like took it out, but then what? This is a Canon, this is not a Nikon shot. So that's another thing, like Canon versus Nikon. It's not just the color science of the camera, but the photographer, if you know how to use a tool properly, if you are like a Canon fanatic, or you don't need to be a fanatic, you just happen to have Canon gear, if you know how to use the camera, you can have images that look as if it was made by a Nikon, or the other way around. Also, if you have a Nikon, I have seen many Nikon shots that I thought were taken by Canon. And yep, so lots of pictures, and we can spend more time with it at our leisure later on. And until then, thank you for chugging along, and look at that. It's just like phenomenal, fantastic, natural detail, and there you go. So I hope you all had fun, and just this was maybe a little bit of a visual representation to show that if you have an older camera, then do not despair about it. If you know how to use it, you can turn out very natural looking photos. Of course, if you are a professional photographer and it's your livelihood, you will shoot yourself in the foot because you are not going to be productive enough. It's going to take you an eternity to take one shot properly. But that's what art is about. When you want to take a shot that has meaning to you even 10 years later, you need to slow down and take your time taking it. And if you are paid, then it's time for you to speed up and churn out photographs by the hundreds, by the thousands, because that pays for the job. And the only way to do that nowadays, to be competitive, is a mirrorless camera. Thank you, team, and thank you for your amazing comments. Bye-bye.